Dikshu, it is Ram Navami today, and we heard the minister. I think he set a deadline for you, well, not on the temple, but on the city of Ayodhya. And you've worked on the master plan for Ayodhya. Why don't you share with everyone here and everyone, all our viewers who've logged on today to watch you, tell us about the plan. What do you have planned for Ayodhya city?
So, thank you for having me here. And yes, it's a very auspicious day that we are discussing, or you posed the question on Ayodhya. Of course, that's been a joint effort with a consortium where we've been involved along with Lee Associates and as well as L&T Infrastructure. And I think the important thing here is when we talk about rising India and the urban renewal that is going on, Ayodhya is obviously a city which has deep significance, not just across India or for Indians, but all over the world. And I think the transformation that is taking place there has been about being able to retain its identity, its sanctity, its historical and cultural significance, and building on it. Just like the Honorable Minister spoke right now, you know, it's very easy to start looking at things with carte blanche and thinking that you need to build something completely new. But I think it's far more complex and far more responsible to take the heritage that we have inherited and from there on build what we today talk about world-class urban development. So the process of creating the master plan for Ayodhya has been precisely that, whether it's the Saryu riverfront development, whether it's about bringing 21st century infrastructure like modern airports, railway stations, and other means of transportation, or it's about reviving the old town. Because, you know, today, we need to preserve our heritage, but we also need to strengthen it because you don't want buildings which start falling apart. So just
and
like
you also don't want glass-fronted buildings in Ayodhya.
No, certainly not.
Right.
Certainly not.
So I hope that's not happening.
That's not happening for sure.
All right. Thank you very much, Dikshu, for that. Let me bring in Mr. Verma. Mr. Verma, Sabarmati was a dead river, and you revived it. It used to stink, and as you were explaining to me that the houses, the back of the houses were facing the river. You turned it around. 13,000 families were relocated in the process, and all of that happened what seems like very seamlessly, without controversy, without environmental groups coming forward and protesting. How did you manage it?
देखिए, मैं पहले तो आपको बता दूं, मैं म्युनिसिपल कमिश्नर था जिस ज़माने में, माफ़ कीजिएगा, थोड़ा मन चाह रहा है, मैं लखनऊ से हूँ तो मैंने कहा थोड़ा डिफरेंट तरीक़े से बात करूँ, नहीं तो मैंने परमिशन ली है, थोड़ी बात उर्दू में भी कर सकता हूँ. तो पहले तो मैं म्युनिसिपल कमिश्नर था. आई हैड लेफ्ट फॉर द वर्ल्ड बैंक आफ्टर क्रिएटिंग द कंपनी, द साबरमती रिवर फ्रंट. And then our Honorable Prime Minister picked it up in 2004, and by 2012, they had converted it. Now the issue is कि Sabarmati जो है, it is not a perennial river, it's a monsoon-fed river. तो वो रुकती है और वो एक तरीक़े का तालाब बन जाती है. तो उसको साफ रखना is a big challenge, you know. And when I had taken over as chairman in, I think, 2018, so it had 0% of oxygen and COD, BODs बहुत आई था. I can say, अभी ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई जाके उसमें swim कर ले, but definitely now we have about 8% oxygen. We have a much better quality of water. And you'll be surprised to see that about 120 species of birds have come back.
Wow.
To the Sabarmati this thing. देखिए, हमें और कोई सर्टिफिकेट दे या ना दे, मैं खुद कंजर्वेशन में हूँ, तो मुझे बड़ा अच्छा लगता है कि एकदम से कमरे से बाहर देख रहे हैं, and a whole fleet of cormorants are kind of skipping the water and they are going across. So बना है, it's absolutely, in a way, a miracle of political tenacity and vision. और किस तरीक़े से 13,000 लोगों को, मैं आज पूछ रहा था लोगों से कि कैसे किया, 13,000 families को rehabilitate करना.
जी.
In a very, very, you know, in a manner in which everyone felt that it brought value to them and it reduced their vulnerability.
Right. So I want to bring both of you in here. Why is it that India has not been able to develop its riverfronts? Delhi में यमुना है, अहमदाबाद में साबरमती है, असम में ब्रह्मपुत्र है, बट हमारा फेलियर रहा है कि हम लोग डेवलप नहीं कर पाए. एंड दीज आर बिग कमर्शियल बिजनेस डिस्ट्रिक्ट एरियाज, प्राइम रियल एस्टेट. What has been the challenge? Is it lack of political will? Is it lack of urban planners? Dikshu.
So we have to remember rivers are actually, they don't look at political boundaries. Some of the rivers you are mentioning actually go through different countries. And of course, a lot of the rivers that we have here go through different states. So we have to understand that river is a continuous feature. Unlike a lake or any other water body of that nature, here it needs an integrated approach. Because if one part of the river is being looked after, but in another segment, you start discharging waste into it, you cannot have a clean river. So I know now policies are coming into place where not only about riverfront development, but you're looking at it as a mode of transport with inland waterways, etc.
Right.
But definitely I feel that river is one feature in a city which can actually become the spine of the city rather than a backyard.
Right.
So for that, you need an integrated riverfront development, but you also need an integrated water management policy towards that river.
Right. Keshavji, yes, please do comment on this.
देखिए, हिंदुस्तान में अच्छे प्लानर्स की कमी नहीं है, बैठे हमारे बगल में. लेकिन दिक्कत है कि the kind of political will which you require in a consistent long-term manner to do a project, because this project takes about 10 to 12 years to do. तो होता क्या है, एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन आया, उसने शुरू किया, दूसरे एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन पे उसने फौरन उसके ऊपर इंक्वायरी शुरू कर दी, all that kind of stuff. So let me not get into it. I'm actually heading a committee high-level committee on urban planning for the government. And one of the recommendation is to take up 25 cities which are on the riverfront and actually develop them. If you look at all across the world, the highest amount of return on investment is on the riverfronts. All your CBDs, central business districts, are on the riverfront.
Right.
So we haven't really thought about how to do this,
But you were mentioning, Mr. Verma, about the work that you're doing in Srinagar. So you spoke about political will. So are we seeing certain state leaders play a more proactive role in developing riverfronts and making the cities more pedestrian friendly?
You heard the governor, His Excellency. I work in Srinagar also. You know, of course, सब लोग ये फिरदौस है और ये सब चीज़. But you know, it is what is happening in the cars are carving out the planning of the cities. What we are trying to do in Srinagar, we are doing 80 kilometers of footpath where people can walk. There has to be pedestrian security and safety. एक तो हम ये कर रहे हैं. झेलम रिवरफ्रंट बना रहे हैं, आपको बड़ी खुशी होगी वहाँ पर जिस तरीके का बन रहा है. आइएगा आप लोग देखने 3 महीने के बाद. You love it because I think Srinagar city may become the model for city renewal for the country, because we are not only doing Jhelum riverfront, but we are also restoring the built heritage on the riverfront. And
amazing. That's the testimony of the transformation of Srinagar, because just a few years ago, I think people would think twice before visiting Srinagar. जी.
देखिए, भगवान कुछ ऐसा उल्टा ना करे, but this is the first time we have shown the political will and the professional integrity to plan and renew Lal Chowk in Srinagar. आप जानते हैं ना लाल चौक के बारे में? इस कदर कंट्रोवर्शियल चीज़ है कि हाथ नहीं लगा सकते हैं. और लोग इतने खुश हैं, और खुश इसलिए हैं कि ये जो डिक्टेटरशिप और लैक ऑफ इक्विटी है ना कार ओनर्स की, हमारे जैसे लोगों की, इसको कम कर रहे हैं. वॉक करके जाएंगे सब जगह. एंड उससे माफ़ कीजिएगा, इफ़ यू डोंट माइंड, आई वाज सिटिंग विद अ पॉलिटिशियन रिसेंटली इन श्रीनगर, और वो आए, उन्होंने पहले ही, आप लोग यू आर नैरोइंग डाउन द रोड्स. अरे भाई चलिए, तो आप डू यू वांट अ हाईवे थ्रू योर सिटी? शहर जैसा, श्रीनगर जैसे शहर में आप तो आराम से walk करिए. You should stroll through the city, feeling the beauty and the and nature around you instead of zipping through. And would you believe it? Srinagar is now having traffic jams. तो हमको तो बड़ा different तरीके से सोचना पड़ेगा कैसे शहरों को develop करना है.
Dikshu, I want to bring you in here. That's probably not probably, that is the approach you'll have to take while you are working on Ayodhya's master plan as well, because it's a place of great historical, religious significance. It's very emotive. So when you're working on a project like Ayodhya, are you taking inspiration from other such cities across the world? What is it that you're putting into that city while you're planning it?
So I would say it's not just about Ayodhya, because there are so many cities in our country which have, in varying degrees, historical significance or cultural significance or natural significance. So I think the important thing we all must realize when we are talking about urban renewal is that so far in the last 4-5 decades, the idea or the inspiration has always been the West. We look at what Western cities have done, whether it is the fascination with the car, and therefore we keep creating, like Mr. Verma has just talked about, highways running through the city, or lots of roads. We talk about how many kilometers of roads we are building every day in the country. But what we are forgetting is that that's a very Western phenomena, and it's a 20th century notion. Today, what we should be learning are the better ideas that the West has succeeded at and failed at. For example, why don't we start looking at, instead of highways, we can have highways, but we should look at new technology like Hyperloop and connect that between cities. So there are a lot of 21st century innovations which need to come into our cities.
You've still not told us about Ayodhya.
So about Ayodhya, I would say that, of course, it's the planning there has ensured that while we insert elements of infrastructure which a modern city requires, let's say, for example, a railway station or an airport. This is a necessity today. But you can do two ways about it. You can either create, like you said, the glass and steel building and put it in the middle of Ayodhya and say this is a modern intervention, or you create a modern state-of-the-art building, but give it the ethos of the historical architecture.
Sure.
And that's exactly what we are trying to do.
Okay, all right. I think we are out of time. The producer is telling me to wrap up, so I'm sorry, but we'll have to end it here. Having said that, please do take up Mr. Verma's invitation and plan your trip to Srinagar. 3 months, sir. So summer in Kashmir, Indian
श्रीनगर में
summer.
आइए, सुनिए, इस कदर टूरिस्ट आ रहे हैं कि पहले से रिजर्व करा के आइएगा.
And
Because
Dikshu
दो
is...
साल के लिए पूरा booked है, hotels, It's an amazing transformation, and all of us should feel very proud, because what is becoming, this is what I call transformational urbanism, which is also going to act as a healing process for the people out there. So there's a lot to be talked around, but
And we already have the minister's invitation for Ayodhya
Shweta,
next year.
I'm certainly visiting Sabarmati waterfront and Ayodhya and Kashmir very soon, so I have a long bucket list.
Yes.
How many of you are going to visit Sabarmati waterfront very soon?
Great.
More hands? Great. Thank you so much, Shweta.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shweta, I'm also going to request you to felicitate our speakers with mementos as a token of our appreciation. Huge round of applause, everyone.
है कुछ खुलने. देख, मैं ये कह रहा था कि अब टाइम ऐसा, मैं लखनऊ से हूँ, और पुराने लखनऊ में घोड़ा गाड़ी और इक्के और तांगों को फिर से लेके आ रहे हैं वापस. अब ज़माना आ गया इसी तरीके का.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Shweta, for moderating that wonderful discussion. Now, before we move on to our next session, I have a question for all of you. How many of you have watched Family Man on Amazon Prime? Great, almost.